Eric, I'm a little late because I had to take a call, like literally at 8 o'clock. But you guys didn't have to wait too long. We got a few people in the chat. Caden the Diesel Freak, as always, a couple other folks. This is the bye week. Dun, 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 dun. Very exciting, right? No, seriously, there's lots going on, moving parts in the Big 12 and at West Virginia. Starting off with, they went from 260 to 400 scholarships. Did you see that news hit?
I saw that today.
Yeah, that is a big deal for the program, for not just, not football, but for Mountaineer athletics altogether. Because when you have athletes, attending West Virginia University, and they're under scholarship, it's always good for the university. Whether it's rifle, whether it's tennis, whether it's, I don't care if they start a badminton team. It's good, right?
Absolutely. A lot of those scholarships primarily going to Olympic sports. So that's great. The notion that we're going to develop our program overall, great news.
Well, we got Daredevil in the house, Afton. Daredevil's coming from California, so it's a little earlier out there. I think it's about 5 o'clock. Afton is out towards Kansas, out that way. So, got people from all over. And Caden the Diesel Freak is coming from Ohio, and he's an Ohio State fan, but we're not going to hold that against him because he'll run over us with a combine. But not the kind that you do in the time you're 40. the big kind. So there are some things that have been said that we brought up on the show that we didn't have fact, or we just kind of heard some rumors, but it's come, Kuz's Corner, Mountaineer Paul, guys that we both know and we trust as sources of West Virginia sports knowledge, and they're YouTube, they're journalists. They're about the closest you can get to a journalist on YouTube. They check their facts, and they have sources. So they mentioned what we had mentioned. We had an estimate 3 to 5. They said $5 million was held aside so that the Mountaineers could kind of fill the voids that they've noticed from this year. Because this year, I know Creedy does not agree with Hoppy on the year 0, but we both agree that this is year 0. And year 0, our friend Jersey Ears, it's like people are reading my mind. He did a fantastic. If you haven't seen this, chat, go back and watch Jersey Ears video from 3 or 4 days ago. He goes and breaks down all the different coaches in the Big 12 on how they performed the first year. Most of them are 3-4 wins. So with that, Eric, do you think Rich Rod can finagle 2 wins? Is that too much to ask? 2 wins, Eric. What do you think?
I don't know. I think previously we had gone over where we thought there's some wins to be had in the season. I think we picked Houston as a potential win, UCF as a potential win. TCU was within reach. At one point, I think we were being homers, and we said there was a chance that Texas Tech, could get surprised. And I think we're kind of just, of course, anything's possible. But for what it's worth, yeah, I still think Houston is within reach. We owe them one. I think UCF is within reach. Colorado's playing better. Will they continue? Don't know. But that's another one that I think maybe we can get there. I think Colorado and TCU are a little less likely, but anything can happen, and especially if we can get Ty Edwards back healthy, not just back, because I don't think he was healthy. I think this at BYU, I think he played. I don't think he was 100% by any means.
Yeah, watching kids with injuries, it's amazing how, like, you look at them from, it's like what do they say? They call those girls that are far from good and good from far, the Picassos, the ones that don't look and so forth. When someone's injured, everything looks pretty much normal. But it's the cutting, it's the explosiveness, it's that little bit, a little extra fifth gear is what is missing a lot of times. And when someone has nagging injuries. So with that, talking about Jersey Ear and his layout, like, so he went over the Big 12 coaches. And before we move on past this, I have some stats I'm going to throw at you. Now, these are coaches that were somewhat successful. Not somewhat, they're freaking banged it out the first year. And we just have to go back to last year. This guy is a West Virginia alum.
Oh, yeah.
You know who I'm talking about.
Everybody does.
Right where I grew up in Indiana, PA.
Mm-hmm.
He's now...
How ironic.
Yeah, he's now at Indiana, the big university. Kurt Signetti, last year, achieved the greatest win total in that program's history. So he gets an A plus with a gold star. And he went 11-1 in 2024. So that is an outlier. But there's another outlier. This is now I didn't go over this chat with Eric. So Eric, can you guess who the next team is? And it was 2024.
2024. Can you give me more of a clue? What conference?
Mountain West.
Nope.
Boise State and Spencer Danielson.
There we go.
So in his first season led to a conference championship. Okay. That's just crazy. That never happens. So because Jersey Ear went on the, 3 wins, 5 wins, that's the bell curve. These are the outliers. Fran Brown at Syracuse last year went 9-3, and that program was in the toilet. That's surprising. Same with Indiana. That team hadn't had success in years. Okay, they haven't even smelt that type of success. That success could be just walking right past them and like, what is that? Is it hairspray, cologne? No, that's success. Fran Brown went 9-3 at Syracuse last year. So going along that same vein, Manny Diaz at Duke went in 2024 went 9-3. And then we're going to get into Colorado. Deion Sanders was 4-7 his first year. This is more the realm of possibility for Rich Rod, I would think. 4-7, 5-6, or now it's going to be 5-7 because we play one more game. But what do you think? You think that's doable?
Shane, man, you're laying too much stuff up on the table. I mean, you got a whole buffet of things we got to cover now. Yes, you got the whole table covered. So it's not fair to compare that for Rich in that a couple of things. Not only did Rich bring in 82 new players, which is just a ridiculous number, and he kind of had to. Rich's coaching style, very different. His whole strategy, very different from Neil Brown's. So there was a huge changeover, and I think most everybody's aware of that. If not the most in the country, the second most. The next thing you got to take into account, and I know there's going to be people saying, "No, he's making excuses." No, these are things work both ways. There's obviously an element of luck to any sort of sporting event, and part of those are sometimes you catch lightning in a bottle, and that's because quite honestly, I don't think Steve Slayton and Pat White people knew how good they were going to be way back when until it happened. And on the opposite side of that, we have something else here, let alone the huge turnover, and that's injuries. Injuries to key players has really hurt us. Jaheim going down really hurt. Ty Edwards going down has really hurt. We've lost a number of players. You combine that with Mark Yule leaving, which, don't get me wrong, I know things weren't working perfectly with him, but he was your QB1. Things with Jaden, our number 2 quarterback. They haven't worked out great for whatever reason. We're down to quarterbacks 3 and 4.
Right.
That being said, I find the most potential in them. So in any case, yeah, even if we don't get another win, I'm just going to go ahead and say it now. So be it. The attitude that we were trying to preach was see what things you can find that are good that you can build on. Because Rich isn't coming in here with no idea of what he wants to do. He knows what he wants to do. He's building towards that. Some of the pieces may not be present. Some of them may not be fully developed. But what are we seeing that is developing? And I think the running back room looks great. We got great news today from Jaheim. Jaheim said he expects to be back at WVU this spring, definitely by fall, 100%. So the running back room looks good. Quarterback situation's looking good, looking to improve. So I guess what I'm saying is, if we get two more wins, great. If we don't, so be it.
Excuse me.
Now, if while you're clearing
Coffee.
that frog, I'm gonna mention one other thing because you kind of threw it out there, and it was like you threw the C note out there tied to a fishing line, and when I bent over to pick it up, you yanked it away from me. Um, you're right. Caridi's like, nah, he's not getting a year zero from me, which, okay, he's just, Tony's kind of funny like that. Hoppy does agree with us. Do you know who else agrees with us? RAD, Ren Baker. He said it himself. He's like, look, and he said the same thing we did. And that is there's a carousel of kids, coming out of high school and the portal. And Rich came in at the tail end when that carousel ride it was already over. And so we missed the boat there. And so that's why quite honestly, that's why to me it was a really smart move to hold back some of those funds, because the kind of dollars that you can spend, the talent pool that was in there at the end, I don't know that it's the kind of thing that you'd want to invest in. I think that's the right way to say that. So we held back, and so okay, that part didn't work out great. We're going to be ahead of the curve on this coming up, and I guarantee you they're already working on people. We've already seen it. He's got recruits coming in. We've got commits. All these things are good, and so if this year is one, fine, whatever. I'm counting it as zero. That's why I'm not terribly worried about the wins. But year one, next year is going to look really good.
I agree 100%. Why I threw out those outliers is because people say, well, it can be done. Those are rare exceptions where someone hit the ground and was able to utilize Kurt Signetti, the transfer portal, to his advantage by taking players off a very successful team. Rich Rod wasn't even able to do that. He took a few from his old school, but a lot of the successful kids went to bigger schools and other schools. So I just want to throw that out there. So there was some method to my madness of throwing out the fact that there were a lot of successful guys. It has to do, and I'm gonna, it's not an excuse, but there are some ways you grade it. And it's, first year coaches, you got to look at more than just wins and losses. You got to look at, like, how is the offense and defense performing relative to team history? For example, Texas Tech has always been an offensive program. And you look at, like, the NFL, the Steelers are always built around defense. And you look at West Virginia, they tend to have, in the past 20 years, more of a offensive philosophy, going back to Dana, even to Rich Rod, where they had the spread. But, you have to go back to Neyland when they had, and Tony Gibson and those guys when they had, a top 10 defense. And I think back to the 96 team. Recruiting and talent development.
Mm-hmm.
It's another trend that you have to kind of look at. That is something that you can't really put a grade on because Rich Rod has not had an opportunity over a full year to do that. Also, how difficult is it to recruit to a program? A Big 10 school might be a little easier to pull some talent into than, say, a Big 12 school. But that's not always the case if you have the dollars nowadays. But also, the conference competitiveness. And they talked about this on Locked On Big 12 today, about conference competitiveness. And it takes like for the Big Ten, Ohio State's year in, year out is going to have 9, 10, 11 wins, easy. SEC, same thing. Your Georgias, your Alabamas are all going to be the top tier. You don't have that in the Big 12 because no one's really kind of stood out, and the group of teams really haven't been together long enough, other than maybe West Virginia, and they haven't won a conference yet. So they're not in the top tier. But that conference competitiveness and schedule really dictates how you grade. Because Rich Rod won against Pitt, that makes his grade go way up as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely. You make an excellent point because whereas a lot of comparisons were made early on about Rich's early success at Jackson State, that's a lower level conference. So the idea that you can come in and shake it up a little easier than maybe jumping into a Power 5 or Power 4 and shaking things up, yeah, that's much more difficult. Now there's another thing that's working strongly in our favor. You mentioned some of the blue ribbon schools in the SEC and the Big Ten. Um, Quite honestly, I'm just going to say it again. I picked Ohio State to win the national championship before the season started. Uh, those schools are established. Our blue ribbon schools jumped ship. They went to the SEC, and things are not quite going as great as they'd hoped. This is shaping up a lot like, and I apologize for the things I'm going to say speak to our demographic, maybe not necessarily everybody in the chat. In the early 2000s, the Big East would have been considered a power conference, and it was a power conference. And we lost schools like Virginia Tech, which at that time, Virginia Tech was a premier program. We lost Miami, which, of course, at the time they were a premier program. BC was starting to come on strong, and they left. And so you kind of had this power vacuum in the Big East. And WVU, which had been competing with those other schools, we weren't necessarily dominating them by any stretch of the imagination, but we were competing with them for certain. We have that same kind of dynamic going on right now in the Big 12. We could stand up now and we could make a move. And Rich's plan is pretty aggressive. He's not talking about making a move in 5 years. He's talking about doing it in 2 or 3. So, and he's not giving himself a year zero. So I'm going to say that not next year, because I think that's overly ambitious, but in 2 years, Rich's plan is for us to be challenging for the Big 12 championship. And if you're doing that, you're in the national hunt.
I don't think next year it's out of the question for a 6-6 or 7-5 record. I mean, that should be very attainable, especially if you have ifs, ands, buts, and coconuts. I think the saying is, but you got Fox coming back hopefully and gets a little bit of experience, and these mistakes. What's the old saying? You learn from your mistakes, but this kid's gonna get a lot of learning this next these next couple games.
Him and Khalil, yeah.
Also, yeah, either one of those guys, get them some game time, get them some hard reps, let them kind of develop, and then next year go for that 4-star or 5-star. Pay some stud. Maybe these young guys can develop, and by year 3, they're superstars. What I am concerned with is eventually there's bidding wars, and sometimes you're just not going to be able to compete someone for the dollars. But if you have a good program and the kids believe in the culture, like Rich Rod's saying, I think if you're if it's competitive, like when you're selling something, you say, okay, you don't want to say, I'm at $3,500 and you're at $3,000. Mine's $500 more, and this is what I can offer you. No, you say, if they were both the same, who would you pick? And if they say, I would pick you, but you're too expensive, you have them tell you, well, what makes you pick me, my team, if we're evenly matched? Well, you have a great culture, you have a great weight room, your pepperoni rolls are on fire. Those are things that they come and they're telling you why your program's better, so you got to get into that position.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully there's a few, maybe a winning season between here and there, maybe a bowl victory. But those are all things I feel the Mountaineers need in order to get to that second and third step. Because right now they're in the crawl phase, not even the walk phase. And then hopefully in the run phase, they're competing for a Big 12 championship. But
so real quick, can I jump on that?
No, hit it up.
All right. We talked earlier, it's probably been a number of shows, but we talked early about the notion that just like in the movie Moneyball, if you play like the Yankees in here, you'll lose to them out there. And that comment was made in the aspect of how do we build a team? How do we seek talent? What is our what are our strategies for when we're on the field? And that is very true. I mean, in all aspects of sports, you've got to consider when you're competing, it's not just on the field. It's in advance of of the season long before the season ever starts. And that's why we were saying this is why it's year zero for Rich. But one of the things that Rich brings to the table, and he did this when he was here the first time, Rich is very innovative in his offensive strategies. So the notion of when you look at his linemen, he's not trying to get your Alabama and Ohio State linemen. He's not so he doesn't have to compete with those schools. He's not looking, the defense to jump back to the other side of the ball. The defenses we traditionally been putting up here, we're heavy on the safeties and the linebackers. And we really, our linebackers aren't like these monstrous guys. They're almost like a hybrid. They're a little heavier than a safety, a little more stout. And it's because they are very active, all of them, that whole group I just mentioned. And so that the fact that you're looking for players who are kind of like hybrids, that's the reason why years ago a guy named Jay Henry came to play here, who, he was only a 4.0 student, 4-year starter. He was an all-conference player multiple years. I think that's how we can do that. So the notion that, hey, you want to go to Alabama, I can understand that. And you're a great player. You might even see the field in your third or fourth year. By the way, you can come here. You'll have a chance to compete for starting position, probably your freshman year. I'm not saying you're going to play, but you'll have a chance to compete for it. Not only that, but we have a system. If you're one of those aforementioned players, you're going to get a lot of TV time. You're going to get a lot of tape where, because we're going to feature you. You're going to get lost in the mix on the field. You go to an Alabama, you go to Ohio State. But,
And
those are things that can help you too when dollar bills can't be as competitive.
Right. Yeah, they can leverage that. Just the fact that they can take that year or two at West Virginia and leverage that into more money, like CJ. They'll just use CJ Donaldson as an example. You can use that. You don't want to be a stepping stone, but that can have its benefits too. But if you get someone out of high school, and I keep going back to Texas Tech because I think they have it down. Beginning of the season, when I saw them spend that money and it was on young guys, I'm like, this is going to be something. This is going to be the mold. And they might prove me wrong by shitting the bed and losing a bunch of games, but I think they have it figured out down there. Hoping Rich Rod figures it out.
I can't believe I was holding on to his name. Who was our DB under Neil Brown? Came here from Minnesota. Beanie Bishop's a great story. Right. Beanie Bishop came here. He had done well at Minnesota. Excuse me. Quite honestly, he had come out of nowhere because he came here from, and this happens to kids all the time. For one reason or another, they get slept on, and nobody knows to even recruit them. and we don't need to go down that rabbit hole. But Beanie Bishop comes here. He not only ends up as an all-conference player, he ends up as an All-American and ends up playing for the Steelers. Now,
He
can you say
very
that would
good.
happen if him had he stayed at Michigan, or I'm sorry, Minnesota? Probably not.
Nope. And that's exactly what you want to use those examples. Like, hey, listen, stay where you're at, have the same success, status quo, maybe see a rep here or there, but I'm going to use you. You're going to be a featured part of my backfield. You're going to get reps, if so like Afton says, she likes old Beanie. Beanie did because of off-season traits, they got a little stronger. Beanie had to go to the practice squad, but he had a very good year last year. 3 interceptions, fantastic. Won the game for Steelers last year in the late season with an interception. But Kevin White from Lackawanna Junior JUCO, he went from elite first round talent at WVU. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's so true. He was a guy that came in and made a splash. What was that? 12 years ago? 10 years ago? Has it been
All the
that
White
long?
brothers.
Yeah. And then we got a couple of his siblings. So there is a method to this. So with that, we already touched on some of these games coming up. The next game, the time was announced, and it's going to be a 1 p.m. kickoff on TNT. I can't really think, but can't remember the last time I watched a college football game on TNT. Yeah, I think Fox does a good job. ESPN is it's hit or miss on depending on the crew you get on the product.
Sure.
I remember when that camera came out where it would go across the field, I think around 2006, that it would pan around and kind of be behind the players. That was really interesting and new. But it just seems like that production value isn't there like it was then. It seemed like it was more of an event. Now it just seems like someone's filming it with their iPhone. It feels like, but I don't know what TNT is going to do. Every time I hear TNT, I think of like wrestling or something. Wrestling. So let's go to the chats here. I'm going to send the invite if anybody wants to come on for the second half of the show. We'll have a few folks say what's up. So with that, Tim Green saying, I would like to see, again, like it used to be, when we would bring them in from high school, keep them for 4 or 5 years, and develop them. I think there's a ratio, Tim, and that I don't know what the ratio is, but there are certain teams that feel that way, and they're paying these kids, hey, here's a contract. I'm going to pay you more than Alabama to come in here, and you can establish yourself. But I think they have to write the contract so that, listen, you're here for 2 years, or I think there has to be some sort of, I keep saying guardrails, but you don't have any way to enforce it. So these kids just kind of like, end of the year, I'm done. But on the back end of that, if someone doesn't perform, you're not going to pay this kid, $200,000 when he didn't perform. I don't think. So it's a double-edged sword. I think you can kind of construct that contract to say it's incentivized. So like, if you don't do X, Y, and Z, we're not going to pay you. If you transfer, we're not going to pay you. I think but then again, some kids wouldn't want to sign that because they all have agents and lawyers, and that's all involved. And there's adults doing adult things, and these guys are young men. They're 3 weeks away from being boys. So, they're playing, a child's game, but the consequences are millions of dollars. Our college football coaches buyouts, like our friend James Franklin. Did you hear his buyout's $56 million?
No, I did not.
Ooh.
That'll sting. Shane, you said a lot there, and I agree. Ren Baker agrees too. Ren Baker was talking about that today. He was talking with Tony, and he was saying that they're looking to bring in high school recruits, and of course, there's a ratio. And that ratio is dynamic. And I think people are still figuring these things out. What we don't want to get to, we don't want to get to the model of when Dana was here, because we got to this point where Dana was just bringing in JUCOs. And I mean, my goodness, that's all he had. He had players for 1 or 2 years and they were gone. And so when we made that transition when Dana left, it was brutal. So that's the first thing you don't want to do. And the other thing too, you want to be able to bring your players up in a system and a program, because a lot of a lot of value can be had from bringing in these younger players, developing them into and molding them into your program, your system. And so the notion that you can buy low, develop them, and then insert them, and then they can perform at a high level, there's a lot of truth in that. And you're helping that young player out, and you're helping your program out. And like you said, it's difficult to compete against other schools with contracts that speak to things like, rewarding them for staying more than for multiple years, because other schools aren't doing that yet. And there's nothing, the NCAA created this mess, and they're not doing much to fix it. Um, but that is the kind of thing that they need to discuss, is, you know, to help your product overall, which is college football. You need to figure out how you're going to standardize contracts, because remember, this started off that it was not supposed to be pay for play, and
Yep.
look where we are. That is
Yep.
exactly what people are trying to make it, because that's what it really is. And these are supposed to be NIL contracts, and so everybody's angry when you see, players being rewarded, and understandably so, and then taking money and leaving. And look, that is the game that was set up by the NCAA itself, and they need to fix that. And in particular, they need to fix it in a way where you can bring in players, keep them in a system, help them develop. And I get it. I am not opposed to the transfer portal. I think you got to do it in a way that's beneficial to everybody, including and especially the players. And one thing that people aren't talking about, there's a huge number of players that go into the transfer portal and they're never seen from again.
That's so true. It's just like, it people don't like to talk about that, but that's the absolute truth. I mean, these kids just disappear. I mean, what are you gonna do? I mean, uh that happens more than you would think. But with that, we talk about the turnover, 80 plus kids that are new. There are some kids that Rich Rod needs to start working on right now, because as a fan and as a guy that's been doing the show for a couple years now, I took about 3 months off in the spring. But we talked about Khalil Wilkins and Scotty Fox. Scotty Fox came in and threw that 30-yard touchdown toss to Cam Vaughn. Okay, he's had some turnovers, but other than those few ducks, I think he's a competitor. He's a baller. He has great attitude. He has great energy. He's big. He's athletic. He's fast. Khalil Wilkins, another guy, he rushed for 23 times. We haven't seen a quarterback run that much since Pat White. We talked about that. He needs to iron out some of the, some bugs in his passing game, but he does have strong arm. His timing and decision making need to get, kind of tweaked. But I would like to see those guys back next year. You had mentioned Jaheim White.
Mm-hmm.
It was a season-ending knee injury, but he mentioned that he wants to return in the spring. That is big. That he would do wonders for this offense if he could get back to his pre-injury form. He looked like a specimen compared to last year to this year.
Oh my. Oh yeah.
God, yeah.
So let me ask you something, because we were talking about, well, we've been talking about this now for a few shows. We're not giving up on the season yet. We're still looking for competition.
No, we're not. But there's a few more. They're on my wish list. Like if I had a list and I'm writing this down, like Cam Vaughn and Rodney Gallagher the third, they still have time left. And they're talented. Cam Vaughn bobbled a couple passes, but he can get space and get open. Gallagher shows signs of being that guy that was highly recruited, and we thought he was going to be the next, Henry, Chris
Mm-hmm.
Henry, but not quite as talented and tall. But I mean, not. But we thought he was going to be a reliable playmaker.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm hoping that they can keep those two guys. Offensive line. It's important for them to keep some of those guys like Nick Crawl and that Layden Livingston. They haven't been fantastic, but I think there's a basis to build on. And you got to have those guys come back in order to have, even if they're just backups, it builds that foundation. So it starts with these guys. And I'm trying to think anybody else I'm missing. Curtis Jones, another guy. If you could have him come back, that would be good. I don't know about Jamar. Jamar Robinson is out. Nick Taylor, he's a young guy that could come back. But I don't know. Just off the cuff, that I'm trying to think of some other guys. I'm trying to think. Chat, can you think of anybody that I might be missing?
There we go. Is Fred Perry? He's done, right? I think Fred Perry
had a list. I have a list in my mind. Like I wrote some guys down, but I don't have them all written down. Like I do it as I'm talking. As Eric's talking, I'm writing.
I agree with you. That list on the offense is I think very accurate. We have a couple of quarterbacks that I know that'll be coming in. I don't know they'll be competing for starting position right away, but certainly it helps. You really need to have at least 4 solid quarterbacks on your roster at any given moment. In terms of defense, and on offense, I'm sorry, yeah, if we add a few more offensive linemen, and again do the same kind of thing of compete, see who maybe could come in and help right away. But in the meantime, that's a lot of time to develop who we have on defense. Carrico's done. This is his last year, I believe. Has been fantastic. But we have Ben Cutter coming back, hopefully. Love to see him come back. Casey?
Yeah, Casey. Yeah.
I don't think he's done. I think he's got another year. Might have 2. I think he's got another year. I'd love to see him come back. I'm not sure about our secondary though. I think our secondary, I think they may be done. Michael Coates has been doing a really good job. I know he got picked on quite a bit against Kansas, but he's been good. The defense has been very good so far.
Curtis Jones
I would
Jr.
like.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Curtis Jones Jr. Jersey years.
Yeah.
Throwing him.
So I think we have a decent foundation to build on and keep developing, but we're going to have to add more people now. The great news is we're not adding 82.
That's right. If you can just keep 20 guys, 20 guys, 25 guys, I don't know what the magic number. It could be 40. I mean, they have guys sitting there figuring that out. I'm sure they have someone on the coaching staff's like, this is what the recipe looks like for success based off of. They have someone sitting there just with a calculator, or that's my texting calculator, whatever. Guys, bear with me. But they have someone figuring out. But, Caden, we're going to bring you in about 2 minutes once we close this up. So we talked about key players coming back. We talked about the recipe for success. We talked about some coaches that have had similar trials and tribulations, but now have their programs running at a point where they're going to be competitive. Your Iowa States, they're playing ball. Guess who else is playing ball that I didn't think was going to be as good? Cincinnati is playing some tough ball. They're gonna have to get after it. So, BYU, Utah, there's probably 4 teams that are smelling that Big 12 championship, as I mentioned before, going past. Like, what is that? Yeah, that's the Big 12 championship, Rich Rod. That's what it smells like. So, Caden, the Diesel Freak, Ohio State fan. I got to warn you, chat, if you don't know him, he's really boisterous, loves his Ohio State, but he shows love to the Mountaineers. So, Caden, welcome. Let me bring him on here.
Good evening, Shane. Good evening, Eric. How are you guys doing tonight?
Doing good, Caden. How are you, man?
Speaking of the Big 12 championship,
yeah,
I've said this before for the last 8 months on social media. Ever since Coach Rodriguez has come back to the Mountaineer program, I said he's going to lead the Mountaineers to the Big 12 championship. He is. There's no question about it. And I said this last week. Ohio State, West Virginia in the playoffs, in the national championship, could happen. Because that's a match, that's a game everybody is wanting to see. Rose Bowl, in the Orange Bowl.
I don't want to see that. I don't want to play Ohio State. I want to play someone else. I want to play like maybe Robert Morris again. But anyways, Caden, what other shows have you been on recently? 2 weeks ago, you're on the show with the ladies of
Big 12
college football. So,
sorry.
Well, if you need to know, I mean, obviously the Ohio State show, give them my thoughts and takes. I had to give Scum fans hell, which I always have the right to do. If you know what Scum team means, you should know what that means. But if anyone doesn't, it's that team from up north.
It starts with an upside down W.
Yep, and then my boys from the 305. I mean, I've been paying attention to those guys. Miami. I mean, those guys are on fire right now, and I gotta give them credit. I gotta give them credit. They're bringing it.
Oh yeah,
they are the Doctor Doom. If you're a comic book fan, I'm not, but the past couple of years I've been on a show where they do a lot of pop culture.
Oh no, I know what you're talking about. But
it's good. It's always good to have a good villain, and they're a villain you can kind of like. Oh yeah,
that's a team you don't want to smoke with.
The pulse of college football is strong and robust and rugged when you got the U in the top 5, and that's just a fact.
It is. I mean, are we going to see Ohio State, Miami playing it out in the playoffs again? Yeah.
That would be good. I'd like that.
That's going to be a dogfight.
Other than West Virginia, you're not allowed to use West Virginia for this, okay? What Big 12 team do you think could compete for the college football playoff? Who would be in the mix for the end of the season?
I feel like BYU is number 1.
Okay.
And then I honestly had ISU up in the mix. Iowa State.
Right.
They were looking really good this year.
Yeah.
And then Utah, to be fair.
And then Utah. But another, I was trying to corner you into or box you in here. What do you think of Cincinnati? I know you're an Ohio State fan, but you got to give the little brother some love. Caden?
No, because I gave Cincinnati love when they went 13-0 and made it to the playoffs. Cincinnati's looking good right now.
Right.
I mean, Cincinnati against Nebraska. No, that was a team. That was a game I saw that Cincinnati said, "Hey, they ain't fooling around." Right. I mean, ever since they did their whole coach staff change, and they've been, getting a lot of these guys in, and the Big 12, I feel like Cincinnati could be a challenger in the next maybe couple of years. I'm going to give them time. I'm going to be fair.
I don't even want to give them time because I think they're competing this year. They're showing that they can play. They have decent defense. The offense is the defense is top is one of the top defenses in the Big 12.
Right.
They're fantastic. So, hey, Caden, you knocked it out of the park tonight, brother. Thanks for coming on, man. Anything else before you pop off?
Well, I do want to say love the show as always. Shane.
Caden, appreciate it, man.
As always, Eric. And you know what, Texas Tech, that's another team I had in mind, actually, to be fair.
Right.
Texas Tech. Now, will we see Ohio State, Texas Tech in the playoffs? I'm going to be patient with the Big 12 because you never know who shows up from the Big 12 and, steps up to their A game. But, I told the college football mafia, if you don't follow them, I told, a lot of the Big 12 fans at on the college football mafia call-in show, I said, I'm going to be patient with anyone in the Big 12 to step up because you already know my team is the reigning defending undisputed 9 times, shouldn't be 10 times, 11 time national champions. But I'm going to be patient waiting for someone to step up. And if it's BYU, so be it. Texas Tech, step up.
I have one last question for you, Kane, and then we're gonna finish the show. Penn State, how many more games are they going to lose this year? And would you pay $56 million to get rid of James Franklin?
Would I pay $56 million to get rid of James Franklin? Oh, hell yeah! The dude can't even win a game against UCLA, the bottom of the barrel, and Penn State is losing to Ohio State. That's one of them, and I know he's probably going to lose to. I think they play Michigan this year.
I think so too.
Okay. Yep. Yeah. And then they're going to probably lose another one to like some nobody random that we beat probably sometime. But you know what? That's just my 2 cents, Shane and Eric. But I'm going to leave it at that with you boys as always. Go Mountaineers, go Pucks. And you heard it from the 9-time undisputed national champions and soon to be 10, 11-time champ fan. And you already know I'm going to be out in the building. So appreciate you all as always. Go Mountaineers and go Bucks.
Thanks, Caden. That's Caden, the Diesel Freak, and he, without a doubt, thinks Ohio State's going to win, and he thinks Penn State's going to crap the bed a couple more times. I think even if Penn State runs the table, I don't know. I don't think they're in the mix for college football playoffs.
That's a very prideful program. I'm not saying that in a negative way. There is a lot of alumni support, fan support for that program. I think they're done with Franklin.
And they can come up with 56 million just in the couch, just in the couch cushions, or they make that from the creamery because all those fatties up there at Penn State, they go there and they pork up on 20 pounds of delicious ice cream, and I'm just jealous because they do have the best ice cream.
I was going to say, when is a fatty like me and you? I mean, let's go. I'm ready right now.
I can't even blame my 20 pounds on that ice cream. I would be a lot happier and not so cynical if it was the fact, because their waffles and their ice cream and their dining facility, although it's been 25 years since I ate there when I visited, it's fantastic. But we got Coop in the house. I think Scotty Fox is going to start in, coming up against UCF. To finish the show, who do you think, who is the quarterback you have under center for this UCF game?
Me?
Coach Eric?
I'm putting Scotty Fox in. Now, who do I think others will? It'll be Khalil. I honestly think it'll be Khalil. I would rather have Scotty in there just because I think he's got more potential as a passer. I think Khalil made some good throws, but I think Khalil, let's put it this way. I think Khalil has made some very hazardous throws that haven't turned out to be hazardous. I think Scotty's throws that were bad, they turned out bad. I think Khalil's a better runner, though.
Khalil's a little more lucky than he is good. And sometimes it's good to be lucky. But the Mountaineers, I think, UCF is a big opportunity for them to get a W. If they don't win this, then they might not win another game. I hate to be that kind of guy. But UCF, pivotal game, you can't get a moral victory if you lose by 7 against UCF, even though it is the bounce house. Mountaineers are 4-0 against the UCF Knights. But is it the Knights? Is that what I don't even know what their logo is anymore.
Golden Knights.
Golden Knights, Pink Knights, Purple Knights, Boogie Knights. I don't know. I just know the Mountaineers need to go down there and whoop some hiney. So this is the West Virginia Call-In Show. Every Thursday you can catch Eric and me here on the Voice of College Football, which has, if you're not a West Virginia fan, you're watching this, fine. They got a show for you. Multiple shows for every school. They even have a Big 12 show, But West Virginia Call-In Show is every Thursday at 8. At 9 o'clock on Mondays is our Voice of College Football regular show, where we usually talk a little bit about what happened last week, which usually this year, other than the Pitt game, we haven't had a lot of great things to say, but we try to be optimistic, be rational. It can't be all doom and gloom. The sky isn't falling. The sun's coming up the next day. Mountaineers are going to get better. Rich Rod has this program on the right track. Just be patient. Eric, do you have anything to add?
I think you said it all, buddy. You set it up perfectly.
Yeah. So, if you don't know, this is the College Show, West Virginia, voice of college football. Thanks for tuning in. And as always, you know what? We're going to end the show with the West Virginia state flag. So, have a great one. Let's go, Mountaineers. Eric?
Let's go.